Hello and welcome to this exploring session, this final session as we look at the lamentable tragedy of Locrine, the eldest son of King Brutus, discoursing the wars of the Britons and Huns with their discomfiture, the Britons' victory with their accidents, and the death of Albonact, and possibly some other death may ensue. It's a play we're 3 acts into. We've got 2 acts to do. We're doing Act 4 and Act 5. If you want to know the story so far, primarily go back and watch some of the earlier episodes. There's a lot to unpack in this play in terms of tone and what's going on. We have quite what the room seems to generally find is a slightly intrusive clown subplot, as well as the main British plot of Locrine and his brothers who oversee different parts of the kingdom, who are being invaded by Humber and his Huns. Humber's had some success in taking out one of the brothers of Locrine, and is now being frustrated, I think, in these general assault on Locrine himself. I think that's broadly speaking where we are. Poor Humber's being threatened by the ghost of his one of his first victims, Albonact, from earlier. So it's all go in the final 2 acts. Lots to play for, to gather our forces and work our way through this final 2 acts. We have this team assembled to unlock the secrets of Locrine. So, in no particular order, reading the parts of Camber, Page, and Madan is...
Hi there, my name's Elizabeth Amisu, and I'm an author living in Romford in Essex.
And reading the part of Arte and Assarachus, or something along those lines, is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good, I'm a historian, and I'm in Yorkshire.
Reading the title character Locrine himself is...
Hello, I'm Dan. I'm an actor based in Montpellier, France.
And reading first soldier Strumbo, Thrasimachus, and keeping a cat warm is...
Hi, I'm Tamara. I'm an actor usually based in London, currently in lockdown with Sammy here, who is being very needy today.
Reading the second soldier, Ghost, and Sabren is...
Hi, I will attempt to be appropriately sepulchral. Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
Reading the part of Estrild and Humber is...
Hello, I'm Sarah. I'm an actor, writer, and director based in Germany.
And reading the part of Corineius and Gwendoline is...
I am Valentina, and I'm an actor and voiceover artist in London.
And I am your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be attempting to guide our way through the various scenes as we go, and generally try to keep the room light and frothy and full of energy and excitement, or something along those lines. Who knows? As we dive straight into Act 4, the prologue thereof, and we have dumb shows going along. Arte does a little bit of dialogue. It may be after the dumb show. We're finding it's quite plausible that the dumb show might occur at the same time as some of what Arte says, but we can say that's very much down to the performer, the director, for a production, as we start thinking in these latter stages of how we might stage this play today. So, a dumb show, enter Arte as before, then let there follow Omphale, daughter to the king of Lydia, having a club in her hand and a lion's skin on her back, Hercules following with a distaff. Then let Omphale turn about, and taking off her pantoffel, strike Hercules on the head. Ouch. Then let them depart. Arte remaining, saying...
Quem non argolici mandota severa tyranni, non potuit uno vincit amor. Stout Hercules, the mirror of the world, son to Alamina and great Jupiter, after so many conquests won in field, after so many monsters quelled by force, yielded his valiant heart to Omphale, a fearful woman, void of manly strength. She took the club and ware the lion's skin. He took the wheel and maidenly gan spin. So Marshal Locrine, cheered with victory, falleth in love with Humber's concubine, and so forgetteth peerless Gwendoline. His uncle, Corineius, storms at this, and forceth Locrine for his grace to sue. Lo, hear the sum. The process doth ensue.
You can almost hear in the background the drums as the end credits to EastEnders plays. Dum 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 dum. What? What's going on here? What? Locrine going to fall in love with Humber's concubine? What? Didn't see this coming. Didn't see this coming at all.
No.
That's This is wow. It's fascinating playing with the imagery there. And this role reversal question. Some problematic questions about ideas of gender being thrown in there, but it's a really interesting plot twist. Can we see where this goes? Any thoughts about this particular one, Alan?
Description of the dumb show, then let Omphale turn about and taking off her pantole. Do we have
It's a shoe.
Fine. No.
Yeah, no. Well, it's pantoffel. It should have an F in there, I think. According to the other edition I'm looking at, but
Like pantoufle.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I'm really struggling today. I'm really.
It's
Friday.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Arte is the one with the lion's skin when Hercules is usually depicted with one.
No, it's Omphale who's got the skin.
Yes, but
it's cross-dressing.
Yeah, they've deliberately role reversed. It's.
I was reading, in fact, only a couple of days ago in Robert Graves' Greek Myths, this precise story. And he's got all sorts of potential explanations because he never actually plumps for any one interpretation. He comes up with about 16 for every possible scenario. But in some ways, he's putting it over as being the replacement of a matriarchal matrilinear system with a patriarchal system.
He does that a lot, actually, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So there's this role reversal going on, and that's the connection with this example from even further in the past to Locrine and what is about to happen to him.
Yes, but all the classical authors said it was unnatural what happened and was the result of being cursed by some god or other.
But usually was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's basically Greek plot, isn't it? Gods does something.
It's mostly Zeus wanted to have sex.
Well, or Zeus, or a story attributed to Zeus, which becomes almost impossible if Zeus does literally all of it, because I'm sure he must be having sex with himself at least on 3 occasions, if you follow some of the myths. Anyway.
And your problem is?
To be honest, I wouldn't put it past Zeus. I really wouldn't put it past him. Anyway, not quite what this forum is about. Let's get into the play. Act 4, Scene 1, if we list it thusly. Enter Locrine, Camber, Corineius, Assarachus, Thrasimachus, and the soldiers.
Thus from the 30 of Bellona's broils, with sound of drum and trumpet's melody, the Briton king returns triumphantly. The Scythians slain with great occasion do equalize the grass in multitude, and with their blood have stained the streaming brooks, offering their bodies and their dearest blood as sacrifice to Albinactus's ghost. Now, cursed Humber, hast thou paid thy due for thy deceits and crafty treacheries, for all thy guiles and damned stratagems with loss of life and ever-during shame? Where are thy horses, trapped with burnished gold, thy trampling coursers ruled with foaming bits? Where are thy soldiers, strong and numberless, thy valiant captains and thy noble peers? Even as the country clowns with sharpest scythes to mow the withered grass from off the earth, or as the ploughman with his piercing share renteth the bowels of the fertile fields and rippeth up the roots with razors keen, so Locrine with his mighty curtle-axe hath cropped off the heads of all thy Huns. So Locrine's peers have daunted all thy peers and drove thine host unto confusion, that thou mayest suffer penance for thy fault and die for murdering valiant Albonact.
And thus, thus shall all the rest be served that seek to enter Albion against our wills. If the brave nation of the troglodytes, if all the coal-black Ethiopians, if all the forces of the Amazons, if all the hosts of the barbarian lands should dare to enter this our little world, soon shall they rue their overbold attempts, that after us our progeny may say, there lie the beasts that sought to usurp our land.
Aye, they are beasts that seek to usurp our land, and like to brutish beast, they shall be served. For mighty Jove, the supreme king of heaven, that guides the concourse of the meteors and rules the motion of the azure sky, fights always for the Britons' safety. Stay, methinks I hear some shrieking noise that draweth near to our pavilion.
Enter the soldiers leading in Estrild, rather.
What prince soe'er, adorned with golden crown, doth sway the regal sceptre in his hand, and thinks no chance can ever throw him down, or that his state shall everlasting stand, let him behold poor Estrild in this plight, the perfect platform of a troubled wight. Once I was guarded with manorial bands, compassed with princes of the noble blood. Now am I fallen into my foeman's hands, and with my death must pacific their mood. O life, the harbour of calamities! O death, the haven of all miseries! I could compare my sorrows to thy woe, thou wretched queen of wretched Pergamus, but that thou view'dst thy enemies' overthrow. Knight to the rock of high Caphareus, thou sawest thy death, and then departest thence. I must abide the victor's insolence. The gold that pitied thy continual grief transformed thy corpse, and with thy corpse thy care. Poor Estrild lives despairing of relief, for friends in trouble are but few and rare. What? Said I few? Aye, few or none at all. For cruel death made havoc of them all. Thrice happy they whose fortune was so good to end their lives, and with their lives their woes. Thrice hapless I, whom fortune so withstood, that cruelly she gave me to my foes. O soldiers, is there any misery to be compared to fortune's treachery?
Camber, this same should be the Scythian queen.
So may we judge by her lamenting words.
So fair a dame mine eyes did never see. With floods of woe she seemed overwhelmed to be.
O Locrine, hath she not a cause for to be sad?
She have cause to weep for Humber's death, and shed salt tears for her overthrow. Locrine may well bewail her proper grief. Locrine may move his own peculiar woe. He being conquered, died a speedy death, and felt not long his lamentable smart. I being conqueror, live a lingering life, and feel the force of Cupid's sudden stroke. I gave him cause to die a speedy death. He left me cause to wish a speedy death. Oh, that sweet face painted with nature's dye, those roseal cheeks mixed with a snowy white, that decent neck surpassing ivory, those comely breasts, which Venus well might spite, are like to snares which wily fowlers wrought, wherein my yielding heart is prisoner caught. The golden tresses of her dainty hair, which shine like rubies glittering with the sun, have so entrapped poor Locrine's lovesick heart, that from the same no way it can be won. How true is that, which oft I heard declared, one dram of joy must have a pound of care.
Hard is their fall who from a golden crown are cast into a sea of wretchedness.
Hard is their thrall who by Cupid's frown are wrapped in waves of endless carefulness.
O kingdom, object to all miseries.
Oh, love, the extremest of all extremities.
And we're just going to pause there at the stage direction. Let him go into his chair, because he's got a chair. Let's just briefly unpack, because it's a relatively long scene. There's a lot more to go. It's an interesting scene. You know, it opens with that straightforward. We have one, isn't it? Great. Few questions there. I mean, it's interesting when Estrild comes in. You know, who's she talking to? Because it's not immediately clear precisely how that speech is functioning. And you know, is it all woe straight out, or is part of it a plaint to the room and going, look at me, you know, take pity? You know, that's an interesting speech. I wasn't quite sure on. How did we feel about that opening speech from her?
Well, it's one of these Hecubus speeches, isn't it? Oh, woe is me. You know,
but is it playing woe to the room as in the characters on stage, or is it playing woe to the audience?
Yeah, I couldn't get a handle on it as I was reading it, but I think looking back on it now, maybe the first bit is internal, so it's just to the audience. Maybe that's, and then maybe she. Certainly by the end, she's playing to the room for sure.
Well, the last bit is definitely to the soldiers, but then maybe also to it's interesting. It's one to unpack. I'm not sure there's a definite answer here yet, but I just wanted to flag it up. Who's talking to whom at this stage?
This can be the comment that one of the comments that I wanted to make about the stage directions, because it is a really funny thing that Locrines are specifically named when he's doing an aside there, and it's a Locrine at one side of the stage, and then the next thing we're going to see is getting his chair. In studies of playbooks, printed playbooks, and of manuscripts, it's been observed that normally it's playwrights who tend to over-advise with stage directions, and not somebody who would actually be preparing it for performance. So somebody was being over-descriptive here, because as actors know, you're not necessarily going to do what the stage directions say you should do. So somebody was describing at length, possibly whoever had tinkered with this manuscript versus the printer, because these certainly do not seem like printer stage directions, specifically for the reason that there's so many other things that seem that if the printer was so attentive here, he would have caught those things to put in when we were confused. So this seems to have come from whichever manuscript, and possibly from whoever was thinking how it should be staged versus how it actually was staged.
Yes, because we didn't actually read one of the stage directions, because it's sort of embedded in the dialogue, that one you just mentioned at one side of the stage for Locrine. And it's interesting, but you know, that might not necessarily mean, it might be misplaced as well. It might not explicitly mean it's an aside. It may be that he and Camber are on one side of the stage as opposed to the others.
Right.
So that's interesting. It's also if it's an attempt to make things clearer, it's actually irritatingly ambiguous. What's Locrine saying during that speech is he's got some fascinating descriptors there. That decent neck. I find that fascinating. I know there's a slight shift in meaning, but it's just, it doesn't come across quite what it means today.
I took it that it meant it was descending. It was coming down from the cheeks to the breasts. It was
like long.
Long. Yeah, it was it was a descending neck.
Can I go back to the stage directions for a moment?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm possibly reading too much into this, but I want to ask the experts in the room. The stage direction that we ended on then, let him go into his chair. Like, recently we've had a couple of times when stage directions of someone being in their chair meant that they were wounded or at death's door. Is this possibly a symbolic thing? Like he's suddenly been wounded by love, so he has to stagger to his chair?
I like that. Yeah,
Nice.
I think that is a really nice idea. I like that. It's again, it's a sort of extension of them being on one side of the stage or being separate, because we're about to go into dialogue which is slightly separate from him. So it in terms of as a guide for us today, it may not be that we would put him in a chair, but that he needs to not be the central focus of what's about to happen for the next few lines. Alan.
The way I would read it would be as a throne, possibly slightly upstage.
Oh yeah.
So he can overview, particularly looking at what's coming up in the next little bit.
Well, it depends where we're staging it as well. If it's just post-battle, maybe it's a chair with sticks that people are carrying on or something like that. Not a throne, but a portable director's seat. Sorry, I'm joking. Tamara.
They did mention a stately chair, though. So they did mention a throne earlier, didn't they? Early on in the play. So I'm imagining that stayed on stage, and maybe that's the chair.
Okay, we've got options for chairs. Any additional thoughts about the scene so far? I mean, Locrine's obviously quite keen.
Yeah.
It's good that we're starting to see some of the long speeches from Locrine. There were other characters before, but now Locrine's getting his long soliloquies, not soliloquies, but his long monologues.
Oh, I think we probably can call that it does feel that to the audience it's sharing his insides. So I think we could call it that.
Soliloquy.
It seems to me that as a plot twist, it's come very late of this sort of plot twist.
Yeah,
I don't know. We've still got probably better part of an hour to go.
Oh wow!
Fair
Okay.
enough.
We've just had the interval.
Okay.
And now he rules with Cupid.
Sorry, say again, Elizabeth.
And now he has to face Cupid.
Yeah. If this is a play needs Cupid on stage, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
With his vengeable bird bolts.
Yeah. Okay, let's finish the scene, because we're only halfway through. Locrine has been struck. So far, he has to go into his chair. Two soldiers take up the cudgels for a few lines.
My lord, in ransacking the Scythian tents, I found this lady, and to manifest that earnest zeal I bear unto your grace, I here present her to your majesty.
He lies, my lord. I found the lady first, and here present her to your majesty.
Presumptuous villain, wilt thou take my prize?
Nay, rather thou deprivest me of my right.
Resign thy title, captive, unto me, or with my sword I'll pierce thy coward's loins.
Soft words, good sir, 'tis not enough to speak. A barking dog does seldom a stranger's bite.
Unreverend villains, strive you in our sight? Take them hence, jailer, to the dungeon. There let them lie and try their quarrel out. But thou, fair princess, be no whit dismayed, but rather joy that Locrine favours thee.
How can he favour me that slew my spouse?
The chance of war, my love, took him from thee.
But Locrine was the causer of his death.
He was an enemy to Locrine's state and slew my noble brother Albonact.
But he was linked to me in marriage bond, and would you have me love his slaughterer?
Better to live than not to live at all.
Better to die renowned for chastity than live with shame and endless infamy. What would the common sort report of me if I forget my love and cleave to thee?
Kings need not fear the vulgar sentences.
But ladies must regard their honest name.
Is it a shame to live in marriage bonds?
No, but to be a strumpet to a king.
If thou wilt yield to Locrine's burning love, thou shalt be queen of fair Albania.
But Gwendoline will undermine my state.
On mine honour, thou shalt have no harm.
Then, lo, brave Locrine, Estrild yields to thee, And by the gods whom thou dost invocate, by the dead ghost of thy deceased sire, by thy right hand and by thy burning love, take pity on poor Estrild's wretched thrall.
Locrine then forgot his Gwendoline, that thus he courts the Scythian's paramour. What, are the words of brute so soon forgot? Are my deserts so quickly out of mind? Have I been faithful to thy sire now dead? Have I protected thee from Humber's hands, and dost thou quite me with ungratitude? Is this the guardian for my grievous wounds? Is this the honour for my labours past? Now, by my sword, Locrine, I swear to thee, this injury of thine shall be repaid.
Uncle, scorn you your royal sovereign as if we stood for ciphers in the court? Upbraid you me with those your benefits? Why, it was a subject's duty so to do. What you have done for our deceased sire, we know, and all know you have your reward.
Avon, proud Princox, bravest thou me withal? Assure thyself, though thou be emperor, thou ne'er shalt carry these unpunished.
Pardon, my brother, noble Corineius. Pardon this once, and it shall be amended.
Cousin, remember Brutus's latest words, how he desired you to cherish them. Let not this fault so much incense your mind, which is not yet past all remedy.
Then, Locrine, lo, I reconcile myself. But as thou lovest thy life, so love thy wife. But if thou violate those promises, blood and revenge shall alight upon thy head. Come, let us back to stately Troinwand, where all these matters shall be settled.
Millions of devils wait upon thy soul. Legions of spirits vex thy impious ghost. 10,000 torments rack thy cursed bones. Let everything that hath the use of breath be instruments and workers of thy death.
It's all kicking off in Albert Square. It really is. Wow, what a series of turnarounds.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing for the king to, possibly find himself, someone other than his queen. It's another thing to do it in front of her father.
And also to offer the crown to the concubine.
Yeah. I mean, it's he's really been struck. He's not struck dumb. He's been struck idiot by this love dart to a fascinating degree. Wow. Yeah. So it starts off with this exchange with the soldiers going, "I found her first. No, I found her. No, I did." And it's just put them in a cage, let them fight it out. So Helen first.
What interests me is the woman who begins with the Estrild's status, because she sees herself as Humber's wife, his queen, but Corineius says she was the paramour, the Scythian's paramour, and this is actually part of a pattern that the British regard her as they diminish her by saying she wasn't his wife, she was just his concubine, his paramour, which I think is quite interesting. I mean, she claims very firmly to have been a wife.
I like the way she protests.
Is
And of
it
course the
because they're
British
pagans?
The British have never.
Oh, Sarah, you're frozen there. Oh, we may have lost Sarah. Sorry, say again, Elizabeth.
Never been known to,
Tamara was just saying that they were pagans, right? So as opposed to the Huns.
Well, there is that slight suggestion that they're slightly Because they're British, they're therefore slightly better pagans. I don't know.
British exceptionalism.
Yeah,
He's all over this play, British exceptionalism.
isn't it?
I mean,
It's fascinating.
great
Every so often,
chunks
though,
of it.
we'll have this long speech going, isn't Britain great? Every so often, though, someone will just randomly burst into it, despite lots of evidence to the contrary.
I thought they were going to sing Rule Britannia, to be honest.
There's something very insular about a lot of this, isn't it? Especially earlier when you've got, especially today, incredibly problematic things about talking about all those others from other countries. Then all those, there's something actually quite unpleasant about that, which it feels logical within the narrative and who these characters are, that there's actually something about that that's quite important and something to be done with that, possibly. I mean, Estrild's wooing of Locrine, or Locrine's wooing of Estrild. I mean, how much of a love match is this? What's going on in that scene?
She does some very quick thinking.
It's practical, isn't it? It's literally, well, I do this, or they're possibly going to kill me.
She's on a knife edge, isn't she? She's got a knife to her throat.
Sorry, Elizabeth, you were breaking up there. Say again?
So she's on a knife edge. Estrild has a knife to her throat. And there's some consternation there between Corineius and Locrine. And I think that Estrild is at the heart of it.
Yeah, I think that's really on at a knife edge, and literally potentially with a knife to her throat. It's really, really nice.
Yes.
Valentina, did I see your hand up just now?
Yeah, no, I was just pointing out that she really does some quick thinking, because she's very clever in dropping Gwendoline in the conversation, and securing her spot. She's very quick on it. She's like, okay, if I do this, then she needs to be gone.
Yeah, she brings that up. She makes sure that she knows what her position is before she says yes.
Yeah.
Alan?
I don't think we've yet had it reported of Humber's demise.
The Humber indeed has not denied.
So to a certain extent, she's playing both sides against the middle.
Yeah. So
But she thinks he's demised.
Yes, she's got good cause for thinking it. We will see. I think we need to move forward now into the next scene, scene 2, which is an interesting combination of characters. I'm really looking forward to see how this one comes out. So enter Humber alone. I love this. His hair hanging over his shoulders, his arms all bloody, and a dart in one hand.
What basilisk was hatched in this place, where everything consumed is to naught? What fearful fury haunts these cursed groves, where not a root is left for Humber's meat? Hath fell Alecto with envenomed blasts breathed forth poison in these tender plains? Hath triple Cerberus with contagious foam sowed aconitum amongst these withered herbs? Hath dreadful Famers with her charming rods brought barrenness on every fruitful tree? What, not a root, no fruit, no beast, no bird to nourish Humber in this wilderness? What would you more, you fiends of Erebus? My very entrails burn for want of drink. My bowels cry, Humber, give us some meat. But wretched Humber can give you no meat. These foul accursed groves afford no meat. This fruitless soil, this ground brings forth no meat. The gods, hard-hearted gods, yield me no meat. Then how can Humber give you any meat?
Enter Strumbo with a pitchfork and a Scotch cap.
How do you, masters? How do you? How have you scaped hanging this long? In faith, I have scaped many a scouring this year, but I thank God I have passed them all with the good Corregio, and my wife and I are in great love and charity now. I thank my manhood and my strength. For I will tell you, masters, upon a certain day at night, I came home, to say the very truth, with my stomach full of wine, and ran up into the chamber where my wife soberly sat rocking my little baby, leaning her back against the bed, singing lullaby. Now, when she saw me come with my nose foremost, thinking that I had been drunk, as I was, indeed, she snatched up a faggot stick in her hand and came furiously marching towards me with a big face, as though she would have eaten me at a bit, thundering out these words unto me: "Thou drunken knave, where hast thou been so long? I shall teach thee how to benight me another time." And so she began to play knave's trumps. Now, although I trembled, fearing she would set her 10 commandments in my face, I ran within her, and taking her lustily by the middle, I carried her valiantly to the bed, and flinging her upon it, flung myself upon her, and there I delighted her so with the sport I made that ever after she would call me my sweet husband, and so banished brawling forever. And to see the goodwill of the wench, she bought with her portion a yard of land, and by that I am now become one of the richest men in our parish. Well, masters, what's o'clock? Is it now breakfast time? You shall see what meat I have here for my breakfast.
Let him sit down and pull out his victuals.
Was ever land so fruitless as this land? Was ever grove so graceless as this grove? Was ever soil so barren as this soil? Oh no, the land where hungry fame is dwelt may nowise equalize this cursed land. No, even the climate of the torrid zone brings forth no more fruit than this accursed grove. Ne'er came sweet Ceres, ne'er came Venus here. Tritolemus, the god of husbandmen, ne'er sowed his seed in this foul wilderness. The hunger-bitten dogs of Acheron, chased from the ninefold Puriphlegethon, have set their footsteps in this damned grove. The iron-hearted Furies, armed with snakes, scattered huge hydras all over the plains, which have consumed the grass, the herbs, the trees, which have drunk up the flowing water springs.
And Strumbo, hearing his voice, shall start up and put his meat in his pocket, seeking to hide himself.
Thou great commander of the starry sky, that guidest the life of every mortal wight from the enclosures of those fleeting clouds, feign down some food, or else I faint and die. Pour down some drink, or else I faint and die. Jupiter, hast thou sent Mercury in clownish shape to minister some food? Some meat, some meat, some meat.
Oh, alas, sir, ye are deceived. I am not Mercury, I am Strumbo.
Oh, give me some meat, villain, give me some meat. Against this rock I'll dash thy cursed brains and rent thy bowels with my bloody hands. Give me some meat, villain, give me some meat.
By the faith of my body, good fellow, I had rather give an whole ox than that thou shouldst serve me in that sort. Dash out my brains, so horrible, terrible. I think I have a quarry of stones in my pocket.
Let him make as though he would give him some, and as he putteth out his hand, enter the ghost of Albernact, and strike him on the hand, and so Strumbo runs out, Humber following him. Albernact's ghost.
Here the gift of fell ambition, of usurpation and of treachery. Lo, here the harms that wait upon all those that do intrude themselves in others' lands, which are not under their dominion.
And scene. Okay. Where to begin?
We've seen a very similar story a week or so ago in Salamis.
We've seen several versions of this story a few times now, or variations on this, but you're absolutely right. The similarity to that scene in Salamis is striking. Clown figure, food, give me food. The but there's similar bits in King Lear that we had, and there was another reference that was a bit similar in another play. So yeah, this whole thing of actually we had a bit of it in Alcazar actually when they were starving and and alone and going out and stealing food from the mouths of lions. So yeah, this is a thing. So let's go back to the beginning. Poor Humber. He's not in a good state.
He's having a bad day.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I think he goes on a little too long. I would be inclined to start the scene with Strumbo, and then let Humber wander on, because he doesn't say anything after Strumbo comes in that he doesn't say before Strumbo comes in.
I'm not sure I quite agree. I think you're right. It's a bit long. I think it's important that Humber's set up as someone who's hungry before Strumbo starts, because if he's got food with him, even if he's not doing food business straight away, but during all of his patter, if he's almost setting up a picnic and Humber's at the back, then there's a huge potential for it's behind you business.
And also Humber's from the A plot. And I think it's important to set up, I agree it goes on way too long, but I think it's important to set up the fact that here is a, high-status character from the A plot who's doing this lament, which, I mean, could be, when he starts, you could think that this is going to be, he's about to expire of, famine, it's going to be a tragic end. And then all of a sudden, Strumbo wanders on and A and B plots collide.
Yeah. And again, I think, we were talking about Strumbo and, the nature of his subplot. Some of the stuff that we were questioning, why is it here? What's this story going on? Well, we've sort of got a bit of an answer actually with the previous scene, with the romantic air quotes, massive air quotes, A plot that's crept into the Locrine story. Strumbo is reflecting that before it's even happened. And then reflects it again here in a way that is just, yeah. Anyone want to talk about Strumbo and his, yeah. Anyway,
No.
Dan, you're going to brave that one, are you? Good luck.
No, just all I want to say was, going on from yesterday, this I would say is strong use of the clown character here, advancing the plot. You can bringing in the humor, changing the tone a bit, like it very much. Also, just once again going back to the stage directions, they're so specific here. What they think should happen and how exactly it should happen. Put it out his hand, enter the gross, strike it down the hand. Just going back to the whole idea of somebody had a very specific idea of how they wanted this to be staged here.
I think Strumbo with a pitchfork and a Scotch cap. They've got a very clear aesthetic for him.
Yes, I mean, is he supposed to be Scottish? I mean, coming from Caithness, he doesn't strike me that there's anything in the speech that says Scottish. But
then one of the big problems with Strumbo is that his speech changes so dramatically across the course of the play that he could be at the moment Scottish. He's trying on being Scottish. There's nothing. You're right. There's nothing. We've had Scots accents included in dialogue before, in James IV. So playwrights could do it.
Would it depend on where the show was being played?
Yeah, I doubt they. I don't know. Did they tour much further north of the Humber?
They went to York.
So I can't see them having a problem with this in York.
Well, York, I mean, the definition of being from York was that you hated the Scots. But in the Humber speeches, you've got this endless repetition of meat. And that's a problem for a modern audience because it doesn't mean meat.
Because they're talking about fruit and things, yeah.
It really doesn't mean meat.
You could change it. You could
To
change it to
food.
food. Yeah, I
You
mean,
could.
it wouldn't. It's just it's a one syllable word swapping out for another one. I don't think it would make that much difference.
Food. Yes, because it gives. I feel it gives a wrong feel to it.
He'll have anything. I mean, the thing is, this is a barren wasteland. I mean, that he's wandered into. Why Strumbo's there, God only knows.
I was surprised actually that he didn't. No, well, yeah, true. I was surprised that he didn't actually when he said, "Oh, I will whatever he says. I'll dash thy cursed brains out, rent thy bells." I was surprised he wasn't going to say, "If you don't give me some food, I'll eat you." He missed that joke.
Yeah. So, Alan?
Yeah, I mean, a thought I had with the previous scene was that the two soldiers could actually easily be played by Strumbo and his underscore comic, because they are effectively brokers' men again.
You might want to avoid making that double just simply because then they might think it is them. You might want to deliberately break it up. I mean, they could effectively be anybody within the company who's not in that scene, because they're in the middle of the scene. They're not at the beginning and they're not at the end. So you could double them with anyone who's literally not there. Tamara?
Just one question. Is the time passing in this scene, is that deliberate or does it just not matter? Because obviously the last time we've seen Strumbo, he's been accused of having sex with this lady, and now she's clearly already given birth.
Yeah, the time has sometimes occurred. Yeah,
Time is an illusion. Lunchtime doubly so.
Well, this is breakfast time, so
and we've got another massive time jump coming up, I think.
So yeah, the time is definitely moving forward. There are things. Anybody want to leap in on Strumbo's stand-up routine? Just anyone want to have a go?
I'm with Dan. I like it.
I thought it was a bit sudden. I was really surprised. Usually when Strumbo appears, it's unexpected, but this time it was a bit of a shock.
The thing about it is really funny. It just is. It's really, really funny. It's kind of, it's not, it's so problematic, but it just is funny. So I think it would just come down to how it was played. It would come down to the decisions by the director and the actor as to how they played it.
Valentina?
It is problematic, but the last time we see her, she is actually quite able to defend herself.
Yes, yeah.
So,
yeah, it's kind of like a Scarlett O'Hara moment, isn't it? And reams have been written about that over the decades. So, yeah.
It's still problematic, but she's not like an innocent lamb.
Yes, Alan?
Yeah, I mean, in contrasting it with the scheme in Salamis, which I really objected to, this is better written, which is why I think it works better.
I'd also say it's less problematic because you can play it differently. You don't have to go with, oh, and I grabbed her and I chucked her and I had my way with her. You can play it as in, I seduced her into forgiving me. It's not what the words say, but I think you can make that decision as a performer to kind of go, I'm totally showing off what a manly man I am, but also,
It's problematic.
It just seemed like a very good timely moment for Strumbo to come in, because I feel like now we've had a number of things happen where we've almost forgotten about the B plot. So for him to come in here and make a big entrance and it actually be well written, I thought it was very well done.
Okay, let's move on into the next scene, and I say scene. It's Locrine alone. It's all Locrine. Go Locrine. Have fun.
7 years have aged Corineius lived to Locrine's grief and fair Estrild's woe, and 7 years more he hopeth yet to live. Oh, supreme Jove, annihilate this thought. Should he enjoy the heir's fruition? Should he enjoy the benefit of life? Should he contemplate the radiant sun that makes my life equal to dreadful death? Venus, convey this monster from the earth that disobeyeth thus thy sacred hests. Cupid, convey this monster to dark hell that disannuls thy mother's sugared laws. Mars, with thy target all beset with flames, with murdering blade bereave him of his life that hingeth Locrine in his sweetest joys. And yet, for all his diligent aspect, his wrathful eyes, piercing like lynx's eyes, well have I overmatched his subtlety. Lie Durulitum by the pleasant lea, where brackish Themis slides with silver streams, making a breach into the grassy downs. A curious arch of coarsely marble fraught hath Locrine framed underneath the ground, the walls whereof garnished with diamonds, with ophirs, rubies, glistering emeralds, and interlaced with sun-bright carbuncles, lighten the room with artificial day. And from the lee, with water-flowing pipes, the moisture is derived into this arch where I have placed fair Estrild secretly. Thither eftsoons, accompanied with my page, I covertly visit my heart's desire, without suspicion of the meanest eye, for love aboundeth still with policy. And thither still means Locrine to repair, till Atropos cut off mine uncle's life.
So we have a little love nest has been set up by Locrine there, which is near Romford. For those who like to know the modern locations, so that's apparently
in
where
your honour, Elizabeth.
Yes. So so he's learned. So it's 7 years, and Locrine's quite annoyed that Corineius hasn't died yet. He's quite put out. He's had to do this whole. Sorry, Elizabeth, say again.
It was just hanging on.
To spite him.
Yes.
So 7 years has passed since the last scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, he's having to go to Romford, every so often for 7 years to have this love tryst. That's love. That's love.
Cruel and unusual punishment.
Any additional thoughts about this speech? How did you find it, Dan?
I quite liked it. Nice speech. Actually moves the story forward. Conflicted character here, working out some things.
Yeah. You.
He's still with Estrild.
Sorry, say again.
I like that he's still with Estrild.
Where's commitment?
7 years later.
There is commitment there. It's a bit seedy, but there's commitment.
Makes him a tragic hero in a sort of way.
Yeah, it's weirdly domestic, all of this narrative. Even though we've got these we've had some battle scenes. Again, the focus of characters is still very narrow. Okay, I'm going to move us forward into the next scene. So it's another very much speechy scene. So enter Humber alone saying.
Oh, Latin. O vita misero longa, felici brevis, eo malorum fames extremum malum. Long have I lived in this desert cave, with eating haws and miserable roots, devouring leaves and beastly excrements. Caves were my beds and stones my pillow bears. Fear was my sleep and horror was my dream. For still methought at every boisterous blast. Now Locrine comes. Now, Humber, thou must die, so that for fear and hunger Humber's mind can never rest, but always trembling stands. Oh, what Danubius now may quench my thirst? What Euphrates, what Lightfoot Euripus may now allay the fury of that heat which, raging in my entrails, eats me up? You ghastly devils of the ninefold Styx, you damned ghosts of joyless Acheron, you mournful souls vexed in abyss vaults, you coal-black devils of Avernus pond, come with your flesh hooks, rent my famished arms, these arms that have sustained their master's life. Come with your razors, rip my bowels up, with your sharp fire forks, crack my sturvid bones, use me as you will, so Humber may not live. Accursed gods that rule the starry poles, accursed Jove, king of the cursed gods, cast down your lightning on poor Humber's head, that I may leave this death-like life of mine. What? Hear you not? Then shall not Humber die? Nay, I will die, though all the gods say nay. And, gentle Arbai, take my troubled corpse. Take it and keep it from all mortal eyes, that none may say when I have lost my breath, the very floods conspired against Humber's death.
And Humber flings himself into the river. Enter the ghost of Albernact.
In coedum sequitur codes in code quesco. Humber is dead. Joy heavens, leap earth, dance trees. Now mayst thou reach thy apples, Tantalus, and with them feed thy hunger-bitten limbs. Now Sisyphus, lead tumbling of thy rock, and rest thy restless bones upon the same. Unbind Ixion, cruel Radamanth, and lay proud Humber on the whirling wheel. Back will I post to hell, Mouth Tenerus, and tell my father and pass Cocytus, the Elysian fields, and tell my father Brutus of these news.
End of Act 4. So, yes, finally, like the opening credits of Monty Python's Flying Circus, Humber crawls on stage, says "it's" and flings himself into a river. Act 4 seems to be, a general recap is Humber walking for 7 years, not eating very much, and Locrine setting up a love nest. It's fascinating where this play has gone. When we did the first act and I was going, don't split the kingdom. Irrelevant. Utterly irrelevant to where this play went.
So far.
So far. Still Act 5 to go. Okay. How do you feel about Humber's exit?
Well, I know where he was living. It's still called Cave. On the north bank of the Humber. It's in the chalk cliff of the yeah.
So he's eating haws and miserable roots. So he's devouring leaves and beastly excrements. Well,
it's actually called Millionaire's Row now, but yes, I know it's possibly one of the poshest parts of the East Riding.
So, well, he gets a river named after him. So, it's his life wasn't in vain. There you go.
It's like he held out for 7 years. And then suddenly decides to chuck himself in the river. It's like, okay.
Well, anticlimactic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. They've been building this up for a whole act. Maybe he's always looking at the river when he's on stage. Just there's the sound of waters constantly going past his head. Go to the river. Go to the river.
7 years. I mean, come on, poor guy.
It's interesting. I don't know whether it's in other sources. I don't see any of this Humber stuff in Geoffrey of Monmouth. I've just been scootling through. he disappears out of the narrative, and I just wonder. This seems to be extra. It may be in other sources, and it may be expanded upon elsewhere. I don't know, but you know, he just seems to disappear, or from that. So this seems to be something playwright seems to have wanted to go with, unless I'm wrong.
Do you know what the etymology of the Humber is, Helen?
No clue.
It won't be from this chap. You know.
No,
these are all reversed engineered. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, the thing is, it's important because it's Northumberland is everywhere north of the Humber.
Mm. It's a major, you know.
I mean, it is.
You know,
it isn't in fact a river; it's an estuary. But it is Humber and Trent are the boundaries of the north. Not that has anything to do with this play.
No.
Rather than Watford Gap.
Absolutely. The north began Humber and Trent.
Mm. Okay. Any other different or on-point thoughts before we move forward into Act 5? Where's it going to end? How's it going to end? Not well. Okay, so Act 5, Scene 1, or the prologue, depending on how you want to classify it. And it's the return of Arte, our favourite chap. So, and a dumb show. Enter Arte as before. So he's still got his burning thing and bloody sword. Jason leading Creon's daughter, Medea following, hath a garland in her hand, and putting it on Creon's daughter's head, sets it on fire. Health and safety nightmare there. And then killing Jason and her departs.
Non tam tinacris existuat etna cavernis. Laesae furtivo quam commuleris amore. Medea, seeing Jason leave her love and chose the daughter of the Theban king, went to her devilish charms to work revenge, and raising up the triple Hecate with all the rout of the condemned fiends, framed a garland by her magic skill, with which she wrought Jason and crayons. So Gwendoline, seeing herself misused and Humber's paramour possess her place, flies to the dukedom of Cornubia, and with her brother, stout Thrasimachus, gathering a power of Cornish soldiers, gives battle to her husband and his host, nigh to the river of Great Mercia. The chances of this dismal massacre, that which ensueth, shortly will unfold.
And yes, just apologies there. Missing a word there. Framed a garland by her magic skill, with which she wrought Jason and Creon's ill. Should be an ill in there. My bad. So yeah, just like Jason and Medea and things. Gwendoline's getting her armor on.
Yeah.
No cucumber sandwiches for Locrine. Oh no. Gwendoline's on the march. So, you now know where it's going, because there are no secrets. Arte just tells you what's going to happen next. Very Brechtian. Yeah. Okay, let's go into the first scene. Enter Locrine, Camber, Assarachus, and Thrasimachus.
But tell me, cousin, died my brother so? Now who is left a helpless Albion, that as a pillar might uphold our state, that might strike terror to our daring foes? Now who is left a hapless Britain, that might defend her from the barbarous hands of those that still desire her ruinous fall, and seek to work her downfall and decay?
Aye, uncle, death is our common enemy, and none but death can match our matchless power. Witness the fall of Albion's crew. Witness the fall of Humber and his Huns. And this foul death hath now increased our woe by taking Corineius from this life, and in his ruin leaving us worlds of care.
But none may more bewail his mournful hearse than I that am the issue of his loins. Now foul befall that cursed Humber's throat, that was the causer of his lingering wound.
Tears cannot raise him from the dead again. But where's my lady mistress Gwendoline?
In Cornwall, Locrine is my sister now, providing for my father's funeral.
And let her there provide her mourning weeds, and mourn forever for her own widowhood. Ne'er shall she come within our palace gate to countercheck brave Locrine in his love. Go, boy, to Duralitum, down the lea, unto the arch where lovely Estrild lies. Bring her and Sabren straight unto the court. She shall be queen in Gwendoline's room. Let others wail for Corineius' death. I mean not so to macerate my mind for him that barred me from my heart's desire.
Hath Locrine then forsook his Gwendoline? Is Corineius' death so soon forgot? If there be gods in heaven, as sure there be, if there be fiends in hell, as needs there must, they will revenge this thy notorious wrong, and pour their plagues upon thy cursed head.
What? Pratest thou, peasant, to thy sovereign? Or art thou stricken in some ecstasy? Dost thou not tremble at our royal looks? Dost thou not quake when mighty Locrine frowns? How, beardless boy, were't not that Locrine scorns to vex his mind with such a heartless child? With the sharp point of this, my battle axe, I would send thy soul to Periphegiton.
Though I be young and of a tender age, yet will I cope with Locrine when he dares. My noble father, with his conquering sword, slew the two giants, kings of Aquitaine. Thrasimachus is not so degenerate that he should fear and tremble at the looks or taunting words of a Venerian squire.
Menacest thou thy royal sovereign? Uncivil, not beseeming such as you. Injurious traitor, for he is no less that at defiance standeth with his king. Leave these thy taunts, leave these thy bragging words, unless thou mean to leave thy wretched life.
If princes stain their glorious dignity with ugly spots of monstrous infamy, then they leese their former estimation and throw themselves into a hell of hate.
Wilt thou abuse my gentle patience, as though thou didst our high displeasure scorn? Proud boy, that thou mayest know thy prince is moved, yea, greatly moved at this thy swelling pride. We banish thee forever from our court.
Then, Lozzel Locrine, look unto thyself. Thrasimachus will venge this injury.
Farewell, proud boy, and learn to use thy tongue.
Alas, my lord, you should have called to mind the latest words that Brutus spake to you, how he desired you by the obedience that children ought to bear unto the sire, to love and favour Lady Gwendoline. Consider this, that if the injury do move her mind, as certainly it will, war and dissension follow speedily. What though her power be not so great as yours? Have you not seen a mighty elephant slain by the biting of a silly mouse? Even so the chance of war inconstant is.
Peace, uncle, peace, and cease to talk hereof. For he that seeks by whispering this or that to trouble Locrine in his sweetest life, let him persuade himself to die the death.
And here enter the page with Estrild and Sabren.
Oh, say me, page, tell me, where is the king? Wherefore doth he send for me to the court? Is it to die? Is it to end my life? Say me, sweet boy, tell me, and do not feign.
No, trust me, madam. If you will credit the little honesty that is yet left me, there is no such danger as you feel. But prepare yourself. Yonder's the king.
Then, Estrild, life thy dazzled spirits up, and bless that blessed time, that day, that hour that warlike Locrine first did favour thee. Peace to the King of Brittany, my love. Peace to all those that love and favour him.
Doth Estrild fall with such submission before her servant, King of Albion? Arise, fair lady, leave this lowly chair, life up those looks that cherish Locrine's heart, that I may freely view that rosial face, which so entangled hath my lovesick breast. Now to the court, where we will court it out, and pass the night and day in Venus' sport. Frolic, brave peers, be joyful with your king.
So, Corineius is dead and everybody's sad, doing the sad thing that we've had in Act 1 and Act 2 and Act 3. We've had a progression of scenes where people are being sad, and what's really interesting here is Locrine goes, oh, yeah, he's been really annoying the last 7 years. Yeah, let's not worry about that. I've just going to let out the people I've been keeping in my basement for the last few years. There's a child comes with it as well. It's not dodgy at all. Not dodgy at all. None of this is. Yeah, and everyone else is a bit miffed. So, anyone want to leap in? Yeah, Valentina.
I just say, for somebody that is keeping Estrild in this kind of, fear that she comes to castle and she thinks she's gonna die, he lets a lot of people that swear revenge go. It's people literally go I'll revenge this, okay, bye, and he doesn't kill anybody.
I was expecting to die. Yeah. Going off other plays we've read, I was expecting Thrasimachus not to make it out the door.
Oh. But even his father, he's waited 8 years for him to die naturally.
And it was interesting talking about how he died from the wound that Humber gave him. And I'm just wondering, is that a literal wound from the battle, or is that the wound that by bringing his daughter into the country, he ruined, Corineius' life, as it were. It was an interesting line. I wasn't sure where that went.
Cambyses he is not.
I was quite fond of the mighty elephant.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, when the, have you not seen a mighty elephant slain by the biting of a silly mouse? And I was, no, really haven't. Love to see that. On YouTube. Yeah. Great line. That's definitely a t-shirt line, isn't it? Any other thoughts about this scene? About Locrine's really gone on a downward journey in these last 2 acts, hasn't he? But not murdery. He's not murdery. He's just a bit dodgy.
He's seedy.
Yeah.
He's devoted to love as well.
Yeah, he's putting his personal desires above the good of his kingdom, which is the cardinal sin for any ruler.
Bad news. Bad news.
He's devoted to love, but he's keeping his woman locked in a Romford basement. It's
well, and he's still got a queen. He's still got a Queen Gwendoline, still there. He's rather done this in secret. It's God. No, Locrine, no.
Bad boy, bad.
He's it can't have been doing him any good.
No, just think of all the journey, the travel time, the commute must be murder.
Gwendoline. Because I remember in the beginning, Brutus gave him her hand before he dies. So, did he marry her, or did he just forget about her?
He married her.
Yeah, no, absolutely married her. Yeah. This is
Okay.
bigamy 101 here.
Okay.
He's really going for. Well, having mentioned Gwendoline, let's go and say hello to her again, because I'm quite glad to see her again. She gets some good dialogue, I think, as well. I don't know if it's good. I just see a lot of it, so that's always lovely to see. So, Act 5, Scene 2. Enter Gwendoline, Thrasimachus, who, as I say, yes, was allowed to leave, was not horribly murdered. Madan, and some soldiers.
You gentle winds that with modest blasts passed through the circuit of the heavenly vault, enter the clouds unto the throne of Jove, and there bear my prayers to his all-hearing ears. For Locrine has forsaken Gwendoline, and learned to love proud Humber's concubine. You happy sprites that in the concave sky with pleasant joy enjoy your sweetest love, shed forth those tears with me which then you shed, when first you would your ladies to your wills. Those tears are fittest for my woeful case, since Locrine shuns my nothing pleasant face. Blush heavens, blush sun, and hide thy shining beams, shadow thy riant locks in gloomy clouds, deny thy cheerful light unto the world, where nothing reigns but falsehood and deceit. What, said I, falsehood? Aye, that filthy crime, for Locrine has forsaken Gwendoline. Behold, the heavens do wail for Gwendoline, the shining sun doth blush for Gwendoline, the liquid air doth weep for Gwendoline, the very ground doth groan for Gwendoline. Aye, they are milder than the Briton king, for he rejecteth luckless Gwendoline.
Sister, complaints are bootless in this cause. This open wrong must have an open plague. This plague must be repaid with grievous war. This war must finish with Locrine's death. His death will soon extinguish your complaints.
Oh, no, his death will more augment my woes. He was my husband, brave Thrasimachus, more dear to me than the apple of mine eye, nor can I find in heart to work his scathe.
Madam, if not your proper injuries, nor my exile can move you to revenge, think on our father Corineius' words. His words to us stands always for a law. Should Locrine live that caused my father's death? Should Locrine live that now divorceth you? The heavens, the earth, the air, the fire reclaims, and then why should all we deny the same?
Then henceforth, farewell, womanish complaints. All childish pity, henceforth then farewell. But, cursed Locrine, look unto thyself, for Nemesis, the mistress of revenge, sits armed at all points on our dismal blades, and cursed Estrild that inflamed his heart shall, if I live, die a reproachful death.
Mother, though nature makes me to lament my luckless father's forward lechery, yet for he wrongs my lady mother thus, I, if I could, myself would work his death.
See, madam, see, the desire of revenge is in the children of a tender age. Forward, brave soldiers, into Mercia, where we shall brave the coward to his face.
Daddy, I want to kill Daddy.
Is that Mercia rather than Mercia?
Yes, it is Mercia, yes.
Yeah.
So Gwendoline was a little disappointing, I have to say. Her dialogue wasn't great. I was hoping for more there.
Yeah.
It felt a bit like she was, I don't know, Valentina, didn't it feel like she was kind of going, oh no, I couldn't possibly, actually I will.
Yeah, that was very quick. I was like, wait, what a second. Like, okay, well, we'll do it now. It's all right. And also, like, I should probably kill the other woman because it's definitely her fault.
Because, yeah, sure.
Because she had so much agency.
There's also repeated cues in there because we did some cue script work on the weekend. It made me go, oh, there's repeated cues.
Yeah. I don't know.
There are 2 points for Locrine, for Gwendoline's conversion. Should Locrine live that caused my father's death? Well, that's not true. Locrine determinedly didn't cause his death.
He killed his heart. He died of a broken heart. That's my argument.
Very Star Wars.
Then, should Locrine live that now divorceth you? Now, if that's news to Gwendoline, then that would change her mind.
Don't think she's a fast learner.
Well, yeah, but
7 years.
Well,
yeah, but
no,
to be fair, that's in secret. That was in secret. This is open.
Yes, he's now said, her father's dead, she's divorced, here is my new queen. At which point she says, right, monkey. Or words to that effect.
So she doesn't mind that he's cheating on her, but she does mind that she's not going to be queen any longer.
Well, I think maybe that's for the child.
All the perks.
Well, also,
Well, it
it's
does
the
disinherit,
dishonour.
yeah.
It's the dishonour. I mean, this is
Yeah.
public dishonour.
Yeah, I mean, kings have mistresses, but they don't tend to divorce you and marry their mistresses unless they're
But
Henry VIII.
Quite.
You're one who did.
Yeah. We don't mention that. We don't mention that. Too soon. Too soon. Anyway, let's move forward. Next scene, scene 3. Enter Locrine, Estrild, Sabren, Assarachus, and the soldiers.
Tell me, Assarachus, are the Cornish chops in such great number come to Mercia? And have they pitched there their petty hosts so close unto our royal mansion?
They are, my lord, and mean incontinent to bid defiance to your majesty.
Makes me laugh to think that Gwendoline should have the heart to come in arms against me.
Alas, my lord, the horse will run amain when, as the spur doth gall him to the bone, jealousy, Locrine, hath a wicked sting.
Sayest thou so, Estrild, beauty's paragon? Well, we will try her choler to the proof, and make her know Locrine can brook no braves. March on, Assarachus, thou must lead the way and bring us to their proud pavilion.
And they exit. We'll go straight into the next scene. Scene 4. Enter the ghost of Corineius, but for doubling reasons is going to be played by somebody else with thunder and lightning. Thunder and lightning.
Sorry, are you meaning that I'm this ghost as well?
Yeah, well, if you're ghost, then you're ghost, yes. Unless
Right.
there's another ghost that's coming up later.
No, fine. I hadn't clicked that at the outset. Behold, the circuit of the azure sky throws forth sad throbs and grievous suspires, prejugating Locrine's overthrow. The fire casteth forth sharp darts of flames. The great foundation of the triple world trembleth and quaketh with a mighty noise, presaging bloody massacres at hand. The wandering birds that flutter in the dark, when hellish night, in cloudy chariots seated, casteth her mists on shady Tellus' face, with sable mantle covering all the earth, now flies abroad amid the cheerful day, foretelling some unwanted misery. The snarling curs of darkened Tartarus, sent from Avernus ponds by Rhadamanth, with howling ditties pester every wood, the watery ladies and the lightfoot fawns, and all the rabble of the woody nymphs, all trembling, hide themselves in shady groves, and shroud themselves in hideous hollow pits. The boisterous Boreas thundereth forth revenge. The stony rocks cry out on sharp revenge. The thorny bush promoteth dire revenge.
And an alarm sounds.
Now, Corineius, stay and seek revenge, and feed thy soul with Locrine's overthrow. Behold, they come, the trumpets call them forth, the roaring drums summon the soldiers. Lo, where their army glistereth on the plains, throw forth thy lightning, mighty Jupiter, and power thy plagues on cursed Locrine's head.
And he stands aside. Enter Locrine, Estrild, Assarachus, Sabren, and their soldiers at one door, Thrasimachus, Gwendoline, Madan, and their followers at another.
What? Is the tiger started from his cave? Is Gwendoline come from Cornubia, that thus she braveth Locrine to the teeth? And hast thou found thine armour, pretty boy, accompanied with these thy straggling mates? Believe me, but this enterprise was bold and well deserveth commendation.
Aye, Locrine, traitorous Locrine, we are come, with full pretence to seek thine overthrow. What have I done, that thou shouldst scorn me thus? What have I said, that thou shouldst me reject? Have I been disobedient to thy words? Have I betrayed thy arcane secrecy? Have I dishonoured thy marriage bed with filthy crimes, or with lascivious lust? Nay, it is thou that hast dishonoured it. Thy filthy minds overcome with filthy lusts, yielded unto affection's filthy darts. Unkind, thou wrongest thy first and truest fear. Unkind, thou wrongest thy best and dearest friend. Unkind, thou scornest all skilful Brutus' laws, forgetting father, uncle, and thyself.
Believe me, Locrine, but the girl is wise, and well would seem to make a vestal nun. How finely frames she her oration.
Locrine, we came not here to fight with words, words that can never win the victory. But for you are so merry in your frumps, unsheath your swords and try it out by force, that we may see who hath the better hand.
Thinkest thou to dare me, bold Thrasimachus? Thinkest thou to fear me with thy taunting braves? Or do we seem too weak to cope with thee? Soon shall I show thee my fine cutting blade, and with my sword, the messenger of death, seal thee an acquittance for thy bold attempts.
And yes, at that point we're just going to pause. It's not listed as a separate scene what comes next, but I think there's a sufficient battle scene coming on for us to just pause before we go into the final action of the play. Bit of shade being thrown by Estrild there, I felt. Estrild. It was really, you'd make a good nun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was a thing, wasn't it?
To
chuck somebody into a nunnery.
Especially an unwanted wife.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, and Gwendoline's really building up on a theme there. Apparently, there's some filth involved in his Locrine. He's quite filthy. It's quite. He's unkind and filthy.
The thing is, like, at the beginning of the play, Gwendoline had all of about 4 lines. And I could get behind her more, like, if she'd been in the play earlier on. But, like, she's just popped up at the end, like, oh, my God. And it's like, well, if we'd seen those scenes with her and Locrine, you know, she's talking about how she was his greatest friend. It's like, if we'd had that earlier on, then that would have made a huge difference. But as it is, I can't really get worked up about this.
I mean, I would, if I were to stage this, I would probably find every possible scene that she could be on, to have her on, and have her, even if she doesn't have lines, have her there so you can see that she's there as, you know, she's just there. She doesn't get to speak. Because then a modern audience would instantly go, what's going on there? And then we'd be behind her when she finally does speak up.
It's also a question of doubling as well. She might be being other people who are noticeably absent at this particular point in time in the play. So there might be a structural reason for that rather than lack of forethought. Valentina.
Yeah, I find, like, because the way she speaks is much different from everybody else, and she seems to like her repetitions. It kind of feels like she's building it up, as in, like, she's learning how to do this. And it makes sense with the fact that she hasn't spoken, basically, for the first 4 acts.
She gets a speech at the beginning, and that's it.
Yeah, and also, like, it's like, it makes it almost sound like she's trying to fight to actually get, like, her voice heard, because she keeps repeating herself. I mean, like, word for word almost.
And that makes sense with the repeated cue that I noticed, that she even gets interrupted by her own brother potentially. You could play with that, and then it is
we would, I mean, I would be rooting for her a lot.
Yeah.
Mm. Yes, physical presence as opposed to necessarily dialogue. Additional thoughts before we go into the final action. Who do you think is going to win?
I think Locrine is merciful, which may not be a good trait in a king of this type. With the problems that he's facing, his merciful nature may not be the best. But I was thinking of Serenus, where he just killed everyone who was a threat, a minor threat. But with this one, Locrine keeps letting them go.
Yes, that's the point. Locrine's failing as a tragic hero here is he doesn't kill enough people.
He just likes to talk. He's like, soon you'll feel my sword. You just wait. Like, okay.
Dan, you were saying something?
I was just saying no mercy, that's all. And that's what should
No
be.
mercy.
So, like Cobra Kai.
Okay, let's go into the final action then. We'll run this to pretty much the end, I think. And there's some interesting stage directions coming up. So let's see how this goes. So the alarm is sounded, and there's presumably battle and stuff going on, because enter Locrine, Assarachus, and a soldier at one door, Gwendoline, Thrasimachus at another, Locrine and his followers driven back. Locrine's driven back. Then let Locrine and Estrild enter again in a maze.
Oh, fair Estrild, we have lost the field. Thrasimachus have won the victory, and we are left to be a laughing stock, scoffed at by those that are our enemies. 10,000 soldiers armed with sword and shield prevail against 100,000 men. Thrasimachus, incensed with fuming ire, rageth amongst the faint-heart soldiers like to grim Mars. When covered with his targe, he fought with Diomedes in the field, close by the banks of silver Simwa. Lovely Estrild, now the chase begins. Ne'er shall we see the stately Troynovant mounted on the coursers, garnished all with pearls. Nor shall we view the fair Concordia, unless as captives we be thither brought. Shall Locrine then be taken prisoner by such a youngling as Thrasimachus? Shall Gwendoline captivate my love? Ne'er shall mine eyes behold that dismal hour, ne'er will I view that ruthful spectacle, for with my sword, this sharp curtal axe, I'll cut it sunder in my accursed heart. Oh, you judges of the ninefold Styx, which with incessant torments rack the ghosts with the bottomless abysses pits, you gods, commanders of the heavenly spheres, whose will and laws irrevocable stands, forgive this foul accursed sin. Forget, O gods, this foul condemned fault. And now my sword, that in so many fights
And he kisses his sword.
hath saved the life of Brutus and his son, and now his life that wisheth still for death. Work now his death that wisheth still for death. Work now his death that hateth still his life. Farewell, fair Estrild, beauty's paragon, framed in the front of forlorn miseries. There shall mine eyes behold thy sunshine eyes, but when we meet in the Elysian fields. Thither I go before with hastened pace. Farewell, vain world, and thy enticing snares. Farewell, foul sin, and thy enticing pleasures. And welcome, death, the end of mortal smart. Welcome to Locrine's overburdened heart.
And he thrust himself through with his sword.
Break heart, with sobs and grievous suspires. Stream forth, you tears, from forth my watery eyes. Help me to mourn for warlike Locrine's death. Pour down your tears, you watery regions, for mighty Locrine is bereft of life. Oh, O fickle fortune! O unstable world! What else are all things that this globe contains but a confusing chaos of mishaps, wherein, as in a glass, we plainly see that all our life is but a tragedy? Since mighty kings are subject to mishap, aye, mighty kings are subject to mishap. Since martial Locrine is bereft of life, shall Estrild live then, after Locrine's death? Shall love of life bar her from Locrine's sword? Oh no, this sword that hath bereft his life shall now deprive me of fleeting soul. Strengthen these hands, O mighty Jupiter, that I may end my woeful misery. Locrine, I come. Locrine, I follow thee.
And she kills herself as well. The alarm sounds and enter Sabren, their daughter.
What doleful sight, what ruthful spectacle hath fortune offered to my hapless heart? My father slain with such a fatal sword, my mother murdered by a mortal wound. What Thracian dog, what barbarous Myrmidon would not relent at such a rueful case? What fierce Achilles, what had stony flint, would not bemoan this mournful tragedy? The crime, the map of magnanimity, lie slaughtered in this foul accursed cave. Estrild, the perfect pattern of renown, nature's sole wonder, in whose beauteous breasts all heavenly grace and virtue was enshrined, both massacred, are dead within this cave, and with them dies fair Pallas and sweet love. Here lies a sore, and Sabren has a heart. This blessed sword shall cut my cursed heart, and bring my soul unto my parents' ghosts. They live and view our tragedy, may mourn our case with mournful platitudes.
And let her offer to kill herself.
My virgin's hands are too weak to penetrate the bulwark of my breast. My fingers used to tune the amorous lute are not at force to hold this steely glaive. So I am left to wail my parents' death, not able for to work my proper death. Ah, Locrine, honoured for thy nobleness. Ah, Estrild, famous for thy constancy. Ill may they fare that wrought at your mortal ends.
Enter Gwendoline, Thrasimachus, Madan, and the soldiers.
Search, soldiers, search, find Locrine and his love, find the proud strumpet, Humber's concubine, that I may change those her so pleasing looks to pale and ignominious aspect. Find me the issue of their cursed love, find me young Sabren, Locrine's only joy, that I may glut my mind with lukewarm blood, swiftly distilling from the bastard's breast. My father's ghost still haunts me for revenge, crying, revenge my over-hastened death, my brother's exile and mine own divorce, banish remorse clean from my brazen heart, all mercy from mine adamantine breasts.
Nor doth thy husband, lovely Gwendoline, that wanted was to guide our stayless steps. Enjoy this light, see where he murdered lies by luckless lot and froward frowning fate, and by him lies his lovely paramour, fair Estrild, gored with a dismal sword, and as it seems, both murdered by themselves, clasping each other in their feebled arms, with loving zeal, as if for company their uncontented corpse were yet content to pass foul Styx in Charon's ferry boat.
And hath proud Estrild then prevented me? Hath she escaped Gwendoline's wrath, violently by cutting off her life? Would God she had the monstrous Hydra's lives, that every hour she might have died a death worse than the swing of old Ixen's wheel, and every hour revived to die again, as Titus, bound to Housel's Caucason, doth feed the substance of his own mishap, and every day for want of food doth die, and every night doth live again to die. But stay, methinks I hear some fainting voice mournfully weep for the luckless death.
You mountain nymphs, which in these deserts reign, cease off your hasty chase of savage beasts. Prepared to see a heart oppressed with care, dress your ears to hear a mournful style. No humane strength, no work can work my wheel. Care in my heart so tyrant-like doth deal. You dryads and lightfoot satyri, you grateful fairies which at eventide your closets leave with heavenly beauty stored, and on your shoulders spread your golden locks. You savage bears in cave and darkened dens, come wail with me the martial Locrine's death. Come mourn with me for beauteous Estrild's death. Our loving parents, little do you know what sorrow Sabren suffers for your thrall.
But may this be? And is it possible? Leave Sabren yet to expiate my wrath. Fortune, I thank thee for this curse, and let me never see one prosperous hour if Sabren die not reproachful death.
Hard-hearted death, that when the wretched call, art furthest off, and seldom hearest at all. But in the midst of fortune's good success, uncalled comes, and shears our life in twain. When will that blessed hour, draw nigh, when poor distressed Sabren may be gone? Sweet Atropos, cut off my fatal thread. What art thou, death? Shall not poor Sabren die?
And Gwendoline, taking her by the chin, shall thus say.
Yes, damsel, yes. Sabren shall surely die, though all the world should seek to save her life. And not a common death shall Sabren die, but after strange and grievous punishments, shortly inflicted upon thy bastard's head, thou shalt be cast into the cursed streams, and feed the fishes with thy tender flesh.
And think'st thou then, thou cruel homicide, that these thy deeds shall be unpunished? No, traitor, no. The gods will venge these wrongs. The fiends of hell will mark these injuries. Never shall these blood-sucking musty curs bring wretched Sabren to latest home. For I myself, in spite of thee and thine, mean to abridge my former destinies. And that which Locrine's sword could not perform, this pleasant stream shall presently bring to pass.
And she drowns herself.
One mischief follows on another's neck. Who would have thought so young a maid as she, with such a courage, would have sought her death? And for because this river was the place where little Sabren resolutely died, Sabren forever shall this same be called. And as for Locrine, our deceased spouse, because he was the son of mighty Brute, to whom we owe our country, lives, and goods, he shall be buried in a stately tomb, close by his aged father Brutus' bones, with such great pomp and great solemnity as well beseems so brave a prince as he. Let Estrild lie without the shallow vaults, without the honour due unto her dead, because she was the author of this war. Retire, brave followers, unto Troyan one, where we shall celebrate this exquisite, and place young Locrine in his father's tomb.
They exit, leaving Arte to close proceedings.
Lo, here the end of lawless treachery, of usurpation and ambitious pride, and they that for their private amours dare turmoil our land and set their broils abroach, let them be warned by these premises. And as a woman was the only cause that civil discord was then stirred up, so let us pray for that renowned maid, that 38 years the sceptre swayed in quiet peace and sweet felicity. And every wight that seeks her grace's smart, would that this sword were pierced in his heart.
And the play ends. And Gwendoline really
Okay.
goes full Tarantino there.
Okay.
Gosh.
It's the direction, taking her by the chin. There's something cruel and intimate. And Gwendoline I just got written dark side.
Yeah. Yeah.
That escalated really quickly.
Well, it's not just that. She comes on and goes, "Oh, they're dead already. It's not fair. Oh no, what? Someone's still alive." And then she jumps in the river, and it's almost, oh.
Missed again.
Didn't think about it.
Yeah, should have guarded the river. Damn.
People chuck themselves into rivers, don't they?
Yeah. Well,
They do in this play.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. The Geoffrey Monmouth. There are more rivers involved in the original story. So the battle is supposed to have been fought in the River Stour, which is near us. So again, feeling that Romford connection. Whereas then the suicide is supposed to happen for the River Severn, because that's Sabren, so that's Severn. Plus we've got the River Humber, right. So there is a real deliberate connection of naming places as part of the narrative. All of these narratives are about naming places, giving them a mythic history to place as well as peoples, and it's that sort of connection. It's conflated here because it's silly. Helen.
Well, there are multiple River Stour.
Yeah, but
the one in Suffolk is not the only one.
No, but I'm going with the Romford connection. I'm thinking there's a certain geographical area they're working around.
As long as the rivers aren't called Avon, we're kind of okay.
Yeah,
well,
we're fine.
Quite, yes.
And
you know the derivation of that, do you, Tamara?
Yeah, no, I do. Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
What's that? Avon.
Yeah. Anyway, it's so Gwendoline in many ways much more like it there. Late to the field, but once she gets into her groove, she really goes for it.
I mean, a bit much there.
Yeah.
Yeah, over the top, I felt, considering she'd won.
Just a tiny bit.
Bitter. 7 years. 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, I have known women who, at their husband's funeral, well, I've known one in particular, who at her husband's funeral was enormously rude to a woman who had actually been his mistress for as long as she'd known, for most of her life. But this is over the top.
Mm.
It's
everything is blamed on Estrild, and quite frankly, I don't think much of it was her fault.
No agency at all. Valentina, then Tamara.
Estrild is written in a bit of a weird way, isn't it? I mean, you're that read it, Sarah, because it's kind of it kind of goes like my husband is dead, mournful. Okay, maybe I'll accept this offer. Then she becomes a total bitch at a certain point. And then she goes back into I'm going to kill myself for love. Thank you very much. It's all because I think Gwendoline starts very small and just goes maybe over the top. By the end, it was quite difficult not to go with it, not to laugh, to be honest. But because she's she almost gets maniacal in the end. But Estrild is
There's a 7-year gap though. I mean, she plays both sides. And you get the impression that she's only married him because it's well, what choice does she have? But then there's a gap of 7 years where she's been living in Romford. And I don't know, I just had the feeling that she just had Stockholm syndrome, that she just learned to love him because he was the only person she ever saw.
Tamara.
Well, I mean, I was going to bring that up as well because, beyond the whole, let's have the women fight rather than focus on the dickwad husband. You have this thing with Estrild because the way that we saw it, the way it was presented, she didn't really get a choice. So to make that either Gwendoline is the villain in the end, or we need to see that Estrild is trying to get her daughter as the heir to the throne and trying to literally take everything that Gwendoline had from her.
Which we don't see. Goes back to what I was saying earlier. There are loads of really interesting scenes with the women missing from this play. It's like if they were there, it would just, yeah. It would
And they're
be
great characters. Like,
Yeah,
they
they're great
are what makes
characters.
me love the play. I literally wrote down Gwendoline's last speech, also seen with Sabren.
Well, the thing is, you could argue that what Gwendoline's done is she's learnt from the mistakes of her father. And, you know, he wasn't very ruthless. He let all these people go. So she's going, no, they've all got to die. And you know what? I might as well have fun while I'm here.
No, she's a bit Cambyses in that way, isn't she? She's kind of in that tradition of tyrants that we've read quite a few of. It's just she happens to be a woman, and she just happens to like hit her stride, as it were, very, very late in the play.
And
But
then
it
they
would be nice to see
glorify
more
it.
of that journey.
But because, you know, she's a woman, it's okay, because then she rules in peace.
Yeah, she reigns for 15 more years. And when her son comes to age, she passes the crown to him and lives in Cornwall in retirement.
Happily ever after.
There's no succession issue at the end of this, actually. It's all very neat and tidy. It's all fine. I particularly like the translation here of Geoffrey Monmouth. When Locrine deserts Gwendoline, Gwendoline was most indignant at this.
Most indignant.
Yes,
Murderous rage.
Well, to be fair, different source.
Gwendoline was far from gruntled.
Yes. So we're into extra time. It's sort of final thoughts about the play overall, and you know, it's really, really interesting. I mean, I'm thinking of this sort of director's perspective. You know, how do you find a through line? Do you try and find a through line? Do you just let it be random? Or do you try and tidy up the edges? I mean, yes, there are bits that can be trimmed down. Some of the speeches a bit long, but you know, they're all minor editorial things. The overall question is, you know, where do you place the tone in a play like this? And you know, comparing it with, say, the Chronicle History of King Lear that we did, you know, which similarly has a very slightly weird tone, although a slightly more consistent one. Because of course I like to try and put these history plays in some sort of order, you know, a narrative order, because it's not, King Lear's a few generations down the line. He's not that far away, and I'm quite delighted that this play does not do the whole split in the kingdom thing. You think it's going to go there, and it doesn't, and that means that I could program this King Lear and Gorbodoc in a sequence, and that would look rather cool. Very different plays, but their disparity is quite fascinating. So that's in my head at the moment. I'm not thinking about this as a single player. I'm now thinking of three. Before we get to the Romans arriving, Romans haven't come yet. We'll get to Bonduca later. That's a totally different kettle of fish. And Merlin, got a bit of Merlin to do yet. Not much Merlin, I'm afraid. There isn't that much Merlin out there. It's disappointing how few appearances of Merlin there is in dramatic literature. So that's my waffle. General thoughts, thinking about staging it. What do you do with this play? Anyone want to leap in? Elizabeth, you may be saying something. You're muted at the moment.
Thank you, Rob. I think isn't the thread that runs through the play Arte?
We haven't touched on the gods, yeah.
And Arte's action through to the end.
That's a point. We haven't really talked about Arte as a thread throughout the whole play. Then that's Elizabeth's point's really good.
She's your cohesion, isn't she?
That 8 and 30 years are set to slave.
Yes, but that just dates the play, doesn't it? In 1596, or at any rate, it dates this epilogue in 1596.
Weirdly, a year in the future of its publication. It's an interesting paradox.
Maybe they were counting inclusively.
Yeah.
No. You do for regnal years. You count inclusively.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's one of the weirdnesses.
Okay, who wants to jump in as well? Alan.
My feeling is that that epilogue could be cut without loss.
Hmm.
I don't think it adds anything much. And, you know, we've had enough of these over the period of, let's just do a bit of crawling to the Privy Council just to make sure we keep the licence for next season.
I certainly think, obviously, reference to the Queen could go. I like the idea of Arte turning up at the very end. We have had Arte throughout, so I wouldn't want to completely cut it. I'd like Arte to be there, if only to stand there going, ha, 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 ha.
Told you so.
Sarah, final thoughts from you?
Yeah, I mean, that was a really good point from Elizabeth. Arte's the through line. She's maybe the person, I mean, she's a great character. She's one of my favorite characters in the play. And she is maybe your through line that helps you to find a way through the inconsistencies of the play. I mean, yesterday I was saying that I was really enjoying it. I found it less enjoyable today, it has to be said. I don't know. Again, I think I said this the other week, I'm repeating myself, but it seems like it's two different plays and the second one isn't as interesting, even though I can't believe I'm saying that, because normally I'm like, oh yay, some women get some lines and we've got some good female characters here, but it's like they don't seem to be set up enough. There doesn't appear to be, it's like Gwendoline's really fascinating, but she just blazes on there out of nowhere. And I did like Tamara's idea that she could perhaps be on stage and maybe, you know, like if you take it to its natural conclusion, she's about to speak on several occasions, she's about to advise him, she's about to, and then some man just comes in and cuts her off. I mean, that would be quite a good way of like building her up and giving her a story. But I don't know, I'm not sure how I feel about this play. I did just love that last Strumbo interjection, though. It's weird. I expected him to come back again after that, but he didn't. But I did really. I thought he kind of went a bit mushy in the middle there, but then he came back strong at the end.
Well, I was just thinking about Gwendoline. I think there's room to actually nix other people's dialogue as well. Some of the random courtiers. I think you could give her a part and expand on that and play around. Tamara, final thoughts.
I was, and I do have to shoot off as well, but I am fascinated by this play. I wouldn't say I love it because there's many problems that I personally see with it, but I love the fact that my initial thoughts about Estrild and also Gwendoline, that I clocked them initially and then something came of that. I really, really like that about this play, and I would love to workshop it. And I would steal lines for Estrild too. So we talked about stealing lines for Gwendoline. You know how I said I kind of wanted Humber to turn around and go and give Estrild part of the troops? So if you set her up as a shield maiden type character, then you also have this thing of like, oh, the shield maiden that gets tamed and the tamed housewife that then goes off to fight, and you've got something really interesting to play with. I don't think we're going to see completely black and white characters, but I kind of love the idea that these two women are also really grey. I would love to workshop this. I think it would be a lot of R&D for this play before you could like confidently say this is what we're going to do with it.
Yes, because we've got various followers and you know, Debon and Sigar and Trucia. I don't even know if he had any lines. You know, there are various characters. I'm sort of sitting there as a dramaturgically going, yeah, we don't need you. We've got someone else. Let's work that text. Helen, I saw your hand up next. Final thoughts?
Yeah, I got quite cross over the suicides with Locrine. I thought what he did was extraordinarily selfish. He killed himself leaving his wife and daughter. and then she killed herself, leaving the daughter. I mean, they were utterly thoughtless of what they were doing.
Mm. Yes, the selfishness of Locrine's fascinating.
It is. He is an extraordinarily selfish character. Me.
Yeah, Dan, you. Final thoughts.
Trying to find the voice for Locrine when I was just looking what was going to happen to him was because of that. The idea that he's a lot of bluster, and then when it comes down to it, he's just a bit of a coward. This is a fascinating play because it's so inconsistent. It really does feel pieced together. Some parts of it, as I've noted about Strumbo before. I really like how certain aspects. I would say I was the opposite of what Sarah was saying. I actually really didn't like it all yesterday, and much more enjoyed today, with the exception of how the end came about there. But for me, just the history part of the whole thing of how plays are constructed is what fascinates me about it. So I'm less about, I guess, always thinking of, well, how would I stage it today versus how did they stage it, or how did they get about, how did they rectify these things? Which parts did they cut, or did they even try to keep all these things in here?
That's an interesting point. I looking at it as a text, I kind of don't see a problem with it within an early modern context of this text being perfectly performable. I don't think the inconsistencies matter in the same way. I don't think that they're not a problem, but I can see the company just making this work with the team that they've got. I think I've vaguely been around the whole room at least once, but Valentina maybe not properly.
I just wanted, like, the thing that I wrote down, it was like one thing at a time, because to me, at least, it feels like there's so much that, and especially towards the end, it feels rushed. And I wonder if it would work better on video, actually, because the changes then are like less dramatic. The changes in like atmosphere and style.
Five-part mini-series with lots of flowing time in motion shots. And
not much there, but it's less dramatic to go from like comedy to like tragedy, and like it's not quite the same as when you have like a clown come up on stage while somebody's dead.
But then it's that question: is that a deliberate effect that we should be leaning into rather than leaning away from? And yeah, it's that thing, wanting to workshop it and get a with an audience as well. At least it's as part of the process to find out how it actually plays, because should you try and fight some potential lines? We have run out of time. Anyone got any final bursting short thing they want to throw in there? Everyone's good. Well, that's it for this week in the afternoon sessions with Locrine. It's a fascinating play. I'm really eager to do something with it. God only knows what. But we're not here to find answers. We're here to just raise the questions. And on that note, till next time, thank you very much, and goodbye from us.
Bye.